All right, let's dive into this hugs to the heart thing. It sounds kind of cheesy at first,
Yeah.
but the more I read about it, the more fascinated I became. Like, I had no idea there's all this research on how it connects to love languages and like actual psychology. And, I always love a good deep dive into these kinds of things. So,
Well, what really struck me is how Hugs to the Heart takes something we kind of already know, love languages, but adds this whole other level to it. Like, yeah, we know we should try to speak our partner's love language or whatever, but Hugs to the Heart makes it less about just doing the right thing and more about the reason behind it.
right, like it's about actually hitting that emotional core instead of just going through the motions, right?
Exactly. And that's where all these psychological theories come into play, like attachment theory. How our early bonds shape our need for security throughout life.
So it's like a hug to the heart is more than just a nice gesture. It's kind of like fulfilling a fundamental need.
Yeah, think about it. When someone you really trust offers comfort when you're having a rough time, it feels like a huge weight lifted off your shoulders, right? And attachment theory says that's because it echoes those early experiences of being cared for.
Oh, that makes so much sense. It's not just about the words or actions themselves. It's about tapping into that deeper need for connection and reassurance.
And Hugs to the Heart goes even further by connecting this to the five love languages. It's almost like giving us a framework for delivering those hugs in a way that really hits home for someone.
Okay, so let's break that down a bit. Like, let's say someone's main love language is words of affirmation. How would a hug to the heart look through that lens?
Well, imagine instead of just a generic good job, you say something really specific to them. Something like, I notice how patiently you handled that situation with your coworker. That's something I really admire about you.
Oh, wow, yeah. It's way more than just a surface level compliment. It's like you're actually acknowledging something unique about them. Like, I see you.
Exactly. And Hugs to the Heart gives some great examples for the other love languages too. Like for someone whose love language is acts of service, it might not be about some big gesture. It might be more about noticing what little things subtly stress them out.
And stepping in to help. So, like, if you see, they always seem stressed about the dishes piling up, just doing them without making a big deal about it could be a huge hug to the heart for them.
Exactly. It shows you're really tuned into their needs, not just trying to check something off a list. And that actually ties into another theory, social exchange theory.
Ooh, tell me more about that one. That sounds interesting.
So it basically suggests that even when we're doing something that seems selfless, like giving hugs, we're kind of wired to create relationships where everyone benefits. It's not necessarily a bad thing, it's just how we're built.
It's like even if we don't realize it, we're always seeking connection because it benefits us too. So a hug to the heart is like, I'm making you feel good. And that strengthens our bond, which ultimately makes me feel good too.
Yeah, that's the really fascinating part. It doesn't mean we don't genuinely care, but it just adds this whole other layer of understanding about why human connection is so important.
Wow, I'm already starting to rethink how I approach, like, even my small daily interactions.
Hmm.
But hold on, I know we've got a lot more to cover. Where do we go from here?
Well, let's dive into some of the other love languages and see how those tie into giving these hugs. And then we'll get into the actual impact on well-being because believe me, there's some pretty interesting science on how good these hugs are for us.
Oh, I can't wait for that part. But for now, we'll have to leave our listeners in suspense. Thanks for joining us, and we'll be back with more in just a bit.
See you soon. It's crazy to think that even with all the technology and being so connected online, we still crave those deep connections, those hugs to the heart.
It really is. And I love how it's not just like some feel-good self-help stuff. We've got all these psychological theories backing it up, attachment theory, social exchange theory. Are there other theories that tie into this too?
Oh, absolutely. Hugs to the Heart mentions self-determination theory, which focuses on our basic need for like autonomy, competence, and relatedness. It's that sense of belonging that's really key.
So hugs to the heart, by strengthening those connections, are helping us fulfill that need for relatedness.
Exactly. When someone really acknowledges your efforts or spends quality time with you or just offers a kind word that truly resonates with you, it makes you feel seen and validated. Like you matter, you belong.
Which brings us back to words of affirmation as a love language. It's not just about flattery, it's about making someone feel valued in the relationship.
And that can be such a powerful hug to the heart. But it's not limited to words, of course. Let's say someone's love language is quality time. It's not just about physically being there, it's about being present.
So that's a good point. Like just sitting next to someone while you're scrolling on your phone doesn't really count.
Exactly. It's about making that person feel like they're the most important thing in the world in that moment. Putting your phone down, listening to what they have to say, really engaging with them. That's a real hug to the heart for someone who values quality time.
And what about receiving gifts?
Yeah.
I feel like this one sometimes gets a bad rap for being too materialistic, but Hugs to the Heart kind of reframes it, doesn't it?
It's all about the thought behind the gift. It's like saying, I see you, I know what you like, and I wanted to get you something that would bring you joy.
Okay, so it's less about how expensive the gift is and more about, like, remembering they mentioned loving a certain author and then surprising them with their new book.
Exactly. Or maybe even a handmade gift, something that clearly took time and effort to make specifically for them. It's that thoughtfulness that speaks their love language.
This is making me realize I've been overthinking things way too much. I tend to get caught up in these grand gestures, but really it's the little things that matter most.
Absolutely. And those little things, those little hugs add up, especially when it comes to well-being. There's actually a lot of research on how expressing and receiving affection has tangible benefits for our mental and emotional health.
Okay, tell me more about this research. How do these hugs to the heart actually make us feel good?
Well, one of the key things is the release of oxytocin, which is sometimes called the cuddle hormone. Physical touch is a big trigger, but even things like expressing affection through words or acts of service can stimulate it.
So even if you can't physically hug someone, writing them a heartfelt letter or doing something helpful for them can still create that warm feeling.
Precisely. And oxytocin doesn't just make us feel good, it actually plays a role in social bonding, reducing stress levels, even boosting our immune system.
Wow, so these hugs are like mini superpowers for our well-being. It's amazing to think something so simple can have such a big impact.
Absolutely. And they can also be incredibly powerful in combating loneliness and isolation. Making people feel seen and connected is so important, especially these days when everyone's so busy and distracted.
Yeah, we might be more digitally connected than ever, but that doesn't mean we don't still feel alone sometimes.
Hmm.
Even something as small as a text message saying thinking of you or offering to help with a chore can be a powerful reminder that someone cares.
Exactly. Those little reminders, those small acts of love can make all the difference in the world, especially for people who are struggling or feeling down.
You know, it's interesting. Hugs to the Heart doesn't just talk about giving these hugs. It also talks about being open to receiving them.
Oh, that's such an important point. Sometimes we can get so focused on giving that we forget to allow ourselves to be on the receiving end. It's really a two-way street.
Yeah, it's almost like we're better at giving than receiving sometimes.
It really is. And Hugs to the Heart talks about that a bit, like learning to recognize when someone is trying to give you a hug, even if it's not in your preferred love language.
Oh, interesting. So, say my love language is quality time, but my partner shows they care through acts of service. I might completely miss it if I'm not paying attention.
Exactly. It's about being open to those different ways of expressing love and understanding the intention behind them. It might not be the exact kind of hug you were hoping for, but it's still a hug.
I love that.
Yeah.
So, as we're wrapping up this deep dive into Hugs to the Heart, is there one big takeaway you want our listeners to walk away with? Like, what's the core message here?
I think it's the reminder that at the end of the day, we all crave connection.
Hmm.
And these hugs to the heart, these genuine acts of love and affirmation, they're like little deposits into the emotional bank accounts of our relationships.
Ooh, I love that analogy. And just like with a regular bank account, those little deposits can really add up over time. It's not about waiting for a big occasion or a grand gesture. It's about those everyday moments of connection.
Right. A quick text to check in, noticing when someone needs help, offering a genuine compliment, all those little things can have a huge impact.
And Hugs to the Heart really gives us that practical framework for how to do it. Understanding love languages, recognizing those deeper psychological needs. It takes all the guesswork out of showing up for the people we care about.
And remember, it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. You have to really tailor those hugs to each individual person.
Well, this has been such an insightful deep dive. I feel like I've learned so much about how to nurture my relationships and really make the people I love feel seen and appreciated.
And hopefully it's inspired you to not only give more hugs to the heart, but also to be open to receiving them.
Absolutely. To our listeners, thank you for joining us on this journey into the world of Hugs to the Heart. We encourage you to check out Hugs to the Heart for yourself. They have a whole section on further reading and resources if you want to dive even deeper.
And until next time, keep your hearts open and remember the power of even the smallest acts